I'm somewhat moisturized.
Okay, that's good.
Right. Well,
Well, we're live, and you know what that means. It's time for your favorite podcast called Tap Calf Transmissions. Unless we have someone out there we need to sue. I am Corey, joined as always by my personal lawyer, Mr. Eckhartsladder. How are you doing tonight, Justin?
yeah, it's been tough suing everyone who doesn't have Empire War as their favorite game, but
Well,
we've
it's
got
all
room
the other
for...
Empire War mod devs that I make you sue, right?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, of course. You cracked the whip, but I need to keep busy, so it's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, welcome everyone to a special edition of Tap Calf Transmissions, where we're talking about a topical book, given that it's Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about a little novel called Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. Right there. I got a physical copy. So it's physical. It's right there.
You didn't do the audiobook.
I didn't do the audiobook. I thought I might because it's a long book, but then I looked at the font size and I thought it was a bold move putting one letter on each page. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I just kind of banged it out in 2 nights.
Banged it out, did you?
Yeah. Physical copy.
Yeah, in their old child's playhouse.
Going for as many of these innuendo as we can for what is it's probably okay. So we'll get into it in a minute, but like I feel like the horniness of this book was oversold to me a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't as horny as I remembered it being, to be honest.
Like it's Star Wars, so
been like really horny last time I read it. Like that's the only explanation. But yeah, it's not. It's more romantic longing than horniness. There is more horniness than usual. That's for sure.
But Star Wars is usually the most chaste thing possible so as not to intimidate its fans. But
yeah.
I was going to ask you about something else before we start. Oh, the other thing was we have officially passed 200 episodes of the podcast. Episode 200 was our NJO retrospective. The episodes were all labeled wrong after episode 151. So we had 2 episode 151s, which I think
were because we had Mew come into the play.
Yeah, I was going to make a Pokemon joke of some kind. Glad you made it first, because I couldn't think of anything. So I've been going through and renaming some of the episodes to fix it. There's like 20 left to do, but it got annoying because Podbean has...
Was it not because there was like a live episode, or like not a live episode, like a non-book episode that got counted or something?
No, there are some we don't count, but like this was 2 episodes in a row that were like title number 151, title number 151. I think one was the Ahsoka finale or something, and yeah, so it just probably an issue when like copying and pasting the description and title for the next upload, and then it just carried on forever. I considered changing one of them to not be a numbered episode, but neither of the contents were something that we could pass off as something that wasn't supposed to be a regular episode, so it didn't work out.
You couldn't lie to the archivists of the channel.
Yeah, all 10 people who listen to every episode, they'd call me out. But yeah. So we'll talk about any Star Wars news maybe at the end. There's none. Spoiler alert.
There is none.
But yeah, so opening thoughts on Lost Stars before we do a quick little rundown of what the book is.
So I went into this saying that I love this book. I still do love this book. I'm curious to hear your thought. It's a book which, like, in terms of prose, is very, very simple. Like there's nothing about the writing in that sense, which is remarkable. In that's, I think, because it is technically a young adult novel, and it also, maybe more than any other book in Star Wars history, is these guys just keep running into each other, which we've talked about in the past. But I get, for Star Wars, I think you can kind of, especially a book like this, they kind of allude to the fact that the Force is at play here. It's fate. So I actually don't mind that. And I find, like, whether I mind that or not depends on whether I like the book overall or not. But even though the prose is simple, I think the story is compelling. I really like the characters, most of the characters, and I'm really surprised 8 years out, we've never got a follow-up to this book.
Yeah, so you're saying the prose wasn't a con.
The prose was not a con, no. The prose was simple, but it wasn't a con.
There it goes.
Um,
There it is. You said it.
one Yeah, I did say it. So one thing that you guys have to keep in mind as well is that this was one of the first new canon novels. It was released when you read the book or listen to the audiobook, you'll see it's a lead up to Star Wars because it was released in September of 2015, before even or August. No, sorry, yeah,
Was it
September
2015?
2015. Yeah,
I thought it was
so
2017 for
before
some reason.
even The Force Awakens. This is the hardcover here was, or the hardcover was 2015. The soft cover was 2017.
Okay, I must have just been going off the date on the inside. Okay.
Yeah. So it was. I distinctly remember this book coming out. It was a big part of the lead up to The Force Awakens. For me, it kind of always has like a, I don't know, a vibe, because I very much remember reading it during that era, before I was actually doing YouTube, and yeah, I like it for that reason. It ties in, some of the lore ends up being a bit wonky, but most of it ends up working. But it definitely feels like a book of that era. It feels a lot like Aftermath.
Yeah.
In terms of like, but yeah. What about you? What were your general thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I think the thing that sticks out, if I am to pick a negative, isn't so much that they keep running into each other. Like, I feel like that's woven into the narrative of the book. Like, this is a thing that's going to happen enough that, like, that's fine with me. I do think there's a bit too much of a Forrest Gump style, like, and then Thane was the one who first called Chewbacca a walking carpet. Like,
Yeah.
because they're at Hoth, they're both at Hoth, they're both at Endor, they're both at this new battle just before Endor that we get to see. They're both at like everything doesn't just conspire to keep them together; it conspires to put them in like the most conspicuous places. So it's like the they're everywhere. That's my only negative. But other than that, like I think it's.
Sorry, go ahead. You think it's what?
I think it's really well written. It's very well written. Very well written. I really enjoyed it.
Very sweet.
That one's for you, Grandma Drzynski. She couldn't say ours, and then I'm Corey. My sister was Ricky. My dad's Ritz. Just everyone married someone and had kids with our names, and she.
You mean Maui?
She suffered into Mowage. She suffered for years. God bless her. She's with the Lord now.
Where there are no R's.
But yeah, so I think it's really well written. Like I think the characters are handled really well, and that's always the thing I'm looking for, is how do I feel about the characters. I really like both Thane and Sienna, and like even all the little fascists you get introduced to along the way. They all have a lot going for them. I really like Jude as a character, Jude Edivon.
Yeah, I like Jude a lot too.
Rest in peace to another member of the Death Star wreckage crew. Yeah, I think like the book gets into some relatively deep stuff for Star Wars, especially for a YA book that a lot of other books kind of shy away from, and I think it does a really good job with it, even with like being aimed at technically younger audiences.
Yeah, you have a character by the end who's like hoping for death, and like they want to kill themselves. And,
yeah.
The ending is pretty dark. I mean, not as dark as it could be. We talk about like what does it look like for Episode 9 if Kylo Ren comes back to the good side, and instead of dying, like what does his life look like? And this book doesn't take. I mean, we'll try not to jump too far ahead, but the central premise, as most of you who have heard of this book are probably aware, is that there's two characters that grow up on a backwater world, which is at the beginning of the book. I really enjoy. The elders are all crying because it joins the Empire, and they kind of realized things are going to go to shit. And then they're both in the Imperial Navy for a bit, but they split up and they end on kind of opposite sides of the Imperial Civil War. And there's no real clean exit at the end. There is no like Sienna, who's the one who stays with the Empire. There's no moment where she's like, well, I'm going to turn on Moff Rand and kill him and turn him over to the New Republic, and all will be forgiven. The book ends with her and him on the opposite sides of a jail cell, basically.
Yeah, like a lot of it felt very Alphabet Squadron to me as well, like Victory's
Yeah.
Price. It's like a toned down version of it still, but like still kind of addressing some of the same ideas. Uh, and I think doing a good job with it, like explaining how someone could stay in the Empire and what effect that has on them if they're not just like a frothing at the mouth like
Yeah.
fanatic by the end of it. Because there's a lot where Sienna is like slowly realizing kind of what they're doing and that the Empire isn't what she thought it was, but still thinking that like in order to keep her word, to keep her honor, she has to stay in there. But then you have other people that are serving with her, like Nash Windrider, who is from Alderaan, has his planet destroyed, and then kind of like goes deeper into that pit because like that's really the only way he can rationalize what happened. Like his whole family's gone, his whole world is gone. The only way to make that make sense for him is to say it happened for a reason, and it like the most needs to be made out of that. So I think it handles those motivations really well.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a bit more than like they're all pretty at the beginning. They all believe in the Empire, and there's kind of one moment early on where there's a kind of a split where you see kind of how two different people react to information that challenges their worldview, and that is when it's revealed sort of that their school has basically conspired against them. Um, and Thane rightly believes that they did that on purpose to mess with them, and Sienna believes that like there has to be another explanation. There's no kind of way that the Empire would have done that. She still believes that generally, yeah, the Empire is strict and harsh, but they follow they're a source of order and good. And after they have that fight, each of them, I think, is sort of furthered into their own views, where Thane becomes more and more, he starts seeing more and more of the little things that the Empire is doing, even at the school, which ends up being magnified significantly when he goes out in the real world, whereas Sienna kind of gets pushed more into her bubble, where she's kind of justifying the stuff the Empire is doing. Um, so
Yeah, like the book picks up at the start, or sorry, at the end of the Clone Wars. So like right after the declaration of the Empire, they're fairly well, you get like these kind of flashback chapters. So you see them at the start of the Empire coming to Jellican, and you get like every few chapters are like a few year jump into their friendship. Thane is from the second wave or second waivers, yeah, of
yeah,
settlers on this planet. So they're like the kind of more affluent people. Uh, the tribes that Sienna's from are kind of like older inhabitants, and they have more of a
like more rural and more
yeah,
traditionalist.
they have like this very honor centric culture where like once they give their word, they're bound to that, even if they're betrayed, because otherwise, what good does your word mean? And so a lot is put forward in the early parts of the book of this, like Romeo and the whole thing is very Romeo and Juliet of like star-crossed lover, lost star-crossed lovers on the opposite sides of all these conflicts. Where you start off with that kind of like these provincials essentially that think that the differences between the two of them are already like insurmountable because they're from this different part of the planet.
Yeah.
But they go to the Imperial Academy later after getting inspired to join the Empire by Tarkin, who they have a nice close personal relationship with for a while.
Which I liked. I liked how all these like, you see like all the nefarious ways that these like kids are brought into the Empire, like the ships being so cool and like the fascists are like kind of nice to them. Um,
William says the
yeah.
book features a very touching love story between Sienna and fascism.
Yeah. Yeah. Sienna's a interesting character where you like, I, I think so. Sienna is as I mentioned, she's the one who stays with the Empire. I really like her as a character because like I think you end up liking her because half the book is from Thane's perspective and he's so crazy about her. Um, but she is really a frustrating character as well, but not in like a she's frustrating in a kind of a realistic way where I think like her reasons for staying with the Empire, although like logically they make no sense, they aren't sound ethically. You can kind of understand, how somebody could be sort of taken advantage of and then end up perpetuating evil like she does.
Mm-hmm. Like,
Although,
it's
you know,
good.
yeah, I was gonna say even within the Empire, she tries her best. Like realistically, I think she'd be very low on the New Republic's um
War crime list.
execution list. Like she doesn't commit any war crimes. She commands a Star Destroyer, but she doesn't command it against. Or that's really only at the end of the war when there's like nobody left, which I really enjoyed. There's like 6 dudes left, and they're like, yeah, have a Star Destroyer. Um,
I feel like that is
but,
probably the weakest part to me.
mhm.
Like the most unbelievable part, I guess, of her plotline, where like she's surrounded by all these people doing things that she comes to understand are horrible, and she always makes these excuses of like, oh well, this is like one bad apple. If the higher ups actually learned about what's going on, then this wouldn't happen. But then she ends up stationed on Devastator like pretty soon out of school,
Yeah.
and so like we see what Thane sees of like the enslavement of people, but while Sienna sees some of this stuff,
Yeah.
it's more from afar, and she like puts it as like, oh, this is just one commander on their own. If Palpatine knew, blah blah blah. But the fact that she's in that service for so long, directly under Vader, like she would be a lot more involved in these atrocities. Like the fact that
You
she
think?
didn't come up against these kinds of things directly herself. I know there's the element of like where she was in command, she was a bit more isolated or insulated from it. But just spending like literal years of doing this, having just it
The
doesn't
way
go
I
quite
Yeah.
far enough. Like I don't
The way
I
I
feel
see
like
it is
that's
like
a bit weaker.
she's hunting the rebels most of the time because like that's what Vader did in the Devastator, and then she's with Death Squadron on the Executor. So like Thane is like he's not on the front lines. He's like in the day-to-day parts of the Empire where
Mhm.
they're cruel for cruelty's sake. They're flying TIE fighters
I
over
guess.
villages just to scare people. Where like most of what she's doing is like hunting the rebels and fighting them. Like like the Devastator wasn't really, doing what other Star Destroyers would do and like going to a random backwater world and, you know, shooting some turbo lasers at them because their farm yields are down or
Yeah,
they're
I feel
getting a little
like
melty.
with the amount they're hunting the rebels, like Devastator would
Yeah.
end up
Yeah, that's true.
being like any suspected rebel area. Like if they bombard a village, Sienna's gonna
Yeah.
probably find out about that, and she goes to rescue these civilians in one of the situations. She's like, oh well, I'm not gonna get in trouble for doing this, and then she realizes, oh, I'm actually gonna get in trouble a little bit for doing this. And I just feel like there realistically would have been more pushing up
Yeah.
against her before having it just like fully
Yep.
exposed to her with her family's like her mom gets kind of pinched for embezzlement because she's basically an accountant on the planet. Uh, in reality, it's like an imperial governor that's trying to pin things on her. Uh,
Mhm.
Sienna realizes that everyone knows. Thane actually comes to help her family and stands not guard. I get like they have this ritual where like you stand with the community. Thane comes, no one else does because no one wants to oppose the Empire. This is after he's already in the rebellion, she's still in the Empire, and this is where like it really turned for her that like okay, this is what the Empire is doing, and then it's still not enough for her to like actually leave because she doesn't see a way out, because she still wants to honor her word. But like I'm not saying it is like a book ruining critique or anything that she doesn't
Mhm.
have those moments earlier. Just I think it gets a little bit like she probably would have seen more.
Yeah, I think that's true. It gets a little yeah, that's like a particularly like Kafka-esque situation where like everyone knows that
Yeah.
that the mother is not guilty. The trial is a sham. She's not. I found it funny. It was like you don't get to mount a defense anymore in criminal cases in the Empire, which we see in Andor as well. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, she's always got, she's always got some way to justify
Mhm.
what the Empire is doing, and she always, I think, because she's wrapped her whole life around it, she always is like kind of driven to justify
Yeah.
the things they do. Like when it comes, what Corey alluded to, the Empire, there's a world which is there's like a natural disaster, and she saves the stormtroopers who are stationed there, but then she also saves some civilians, and she gets chewed out and punished for doing so. And she justifies it as, well, they're not actually mad at me doing that. They're mad at me not getting correct orders first, or not like,
Not following the
you
chain of
know,
command.
yeah, they're really happy I did this, but they're actually mad that I didn't do it, the right way. When really, like, they don't give a shit about these random like hillbillies she picked up. They probably wouldn't want her to risk the vessel to do so. Um, but yeah, there's like a million cases like that, going all the way back to school. Like there's another case where she's like looking at, like, she transparently has drank the Kool-Aid, and Thane has two at the beginning. Like there's one case where there's a planet that's like gone to shit. I can't remember what it is. It's not Jellycan, it's one of the others, and she's like, each planet has a duty to build itself up, like ignoring the fact that the Empire very clearly goes in and like exploits everything possible.
Yeah, she quotes Pierre Poilievre and says that planet needs to learn the value of hardware.
Yeah, she said, "Listen, we got to get DEI wokeness out of Jellucan," and yeah, no, I'm tired of needing to have one first waiver for every job. It's nonsense DEI. Um, but I do also like that Jellucan is featured, because the story takes place over, what, I guess, like, nearly
30
15
years.
years. How much?
No, I guess so what? 20.
Because it's like 10 ABY at the beginning, or
Okay, so yeah,
BBY
yeah,
to,
it's earlier than, yeah, later than that.
yeah. So like
So yeah,
maybe like
15
15 to
years.
20 years. So you really see this planet, which was a former separatist world, um, sort of be integrated into the Empire, and then just completely like destroyed over time, which I quite liked. Like by the end, it is like industrial shithole, like number 16.
And
It wasn't
a
a nice
special
planet to
thanks
begin with.
to the Templin Institute for noticing how happy we are doing this podcast together.
I didn't even
Thank
have
you,
your
Mark.
chat open. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just disgraceful, Justin. But yeah, like
Yes.
I think it does make sense. Like the way she rationalized everything, I think like you can see how she reaches the conclusions she does. Like even if it doesn't make sense, but like how someone could be in that mind space. And
Hmm.
like it was kind of interesting reading this because I just went through a bunch of Starfighters of Adamar and did a video on Terran Rogris, and like how he was struggling with like his whole "my word
Oh
is
my
my
god.
bond"
Good video.
thing, and how did he not realize this stuff before? And ultimately, like I think what you get to with even Sienna here is that like it by valuing her word over that, like at a certain point, then it's defense. Like there's no defense you can actually have of that, even if
Yeah.
like you can look at her and say that she is fundamentally a good person. Like she is so willing to go along with all these things, essentially for a point of personal pride almost.
Hmm.
Like that it doesn't really make up for what she's actually doing. And then especially after, and like I was more frustrated with her going between Endor and Jakku, where like she's
Yeah.
clearly spiraling, but
Yeah.
like I
She's
thought,
like
oh, is she gonna try to
hoping.
go home and get
Yeah.
out the way
She's
he did?
hoping she dies, basically.
Yeah.
She kind of hints that she was considering trying to run away, but she
Mhm.
gets thrown right back into service. Um, yeah, like she's lucky, like in terms of the future Republic War tribunals, because she misses out on most of the Project Cinder stuff because she gets fucked up by a steel beam.
Mhm.
Um, even that, like that point, her life is just written to be so miserable. Like like everything that happens, it's funny because you read the book early on. The Empire, obviously, as the reader, we know that it's what it is, but they go to the Imperial. Like a lot of the early book is set in the Imperial Academy. I really like that section. Kind of reminds me of the Thrawn, the first
Yeah.
canon Thrawn novel. But it's this glitzy, it's like for the high performers, it's very academically and physically challenging, but there's like real reward there. And then by the end, after Endor's things are falling apart, she's been crippled by an injury and everything's gone to shit. Like the one Grand Moff she's under is probably an asshole. She's like they've got like 16-year-olds working on their Star Destroyers. So I did like seeing just how much shit had completely fallen apart by the end. And she's just like in the entire time just like just can something just kill me, like a heart attack, like fall out of bed in the morning. She's like in the back to tank, and like it almost seems like she's kind of getting addicted to drugs even.
Can I drown in here? Just a quick question to the text. Can I yeah, like
Uh, yeah.
she's still hoping for these things to happen. Just take the initiative, Sienna. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And especially knowing, like, earlier on, I have more sympathy, I guess, for like the Imperials between like the Clone Wars and 10 BBY, where it's like, oh, we don't know what the limits of internal reform are. We don't know the limits of like how corrupt everything is, because like in a lot of places you wouldn't necessarily be exposed to like what's going on Kashyyyk, or like
Yeah.
the Empire's widespread shitty programs. And there isn't an alternative at that point, really, to like the rebellion isn't as established. If you don't think that you're capable of establishing that kind of thing, then it's more understandable that people think like, oh, I have to this, I'm just trying to exist. And we
Yep.
even see with Luke, like he's not looking to get involved in anything big, and then until he like has this clear chance to, because of fucking like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Princess Leia bring him into it. Like that's
Yeah.
not an opportunity that most people get. And before then, he was going to join the Imperial fleet as a way to get away from home, the same kind of way that Thane was,
Yeah.
because his family's abusive, and he wants to leave Jellucan. Both Sienna and Thane get into it not necessarily because they love the Empire, even though they do love the Empire, or Sienna loves the Empire because of what she thinks it represents, but they mostly just want to be two kids who get to fly the coolest spaceships. And the Empire is where you go if you want to fly some cool spaceships. And
Yep.
that kind of turns into all the extra fascism.
Yeah, they get you. They get you like that with the cool ships.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's how a lot of Star Wars fans feel too. Like, the Imperial Star Destroyer is cool. Like, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like
Doesn't mean I agree with
the
all of its policies.
the main thing about like her is, and I think like the warning of the book for young people is like she's not actually giving her allegiance to anything real. Like she's giving her allegiance to the Empire as like a thing, but not an idea. So like the question is like, what is the Empire meant to do? Like you shouldn't be giving your allegiance to the Empire just because you can. You should be giving your allegiance to the Empire because you believe that it's the best way to serve the galaxy. Because like that would make her, ethical handling of the situation a lot easier. Yeah, you haven't kept your word as strict as it is to the Empire, but your ultimate, purpose is to help the galaxy. And Thane even says you're like to her directly, they haven't kept their word to you. Like they
Yeah.
haven't honored their pledge to you, which I think is kind of the main warning. Like don't just blindly support something.
Yeah.
Like
Well, she even
it's not
kind of
a
picks up on it not being the best for Jellican, where like her parents stop giving her, like she hears less and less about what's going on back home, and
Mhm.
she's like, well, this kind of stinks. Uh, but it's not until like her mom becomes personally implicated in these issues that she's like, oh, maybe things are actually bad. And on a certain level, like that is what it takes to make people kind of realize that something is wrong. But that's also not great either. Of like
Yeah, she's not
maybe
an
figure out other stuff, because she's kind of she is projecting her own morals and ideas of what the Empire should be onto like the leadership of the Empire, where she thinks like, oh, like 2 levels above me must be, this is where the good people are, and this is all
yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah, and like a big part, like she's not a blameless character. Like Thane joining the Empire, he's a blameless character because when pretty much blameless. Like he's fed a shitload of propaganda in school. That's the other thing. Like you get surrounded by these people, and he's also surrounded by the other imperial families on Jelucan. But he pieces out. The thing for Ciena is like a big part of it for her is she also wants to be upwardly mobile. Like she is ambitious.
Yeah.
And like that is like that plays into it. So she's not an innocent character here, which is why I think she's interesting because she's still likable. But like even at the end when she gets the Star Destroyer, and it's if you've read the other books, she essentially has that ship to kill it. It's supposed to die. She still like is excited even though she knows she shouldn't be, and she wants to kill herself. She still gets like that little endorphin rush from achieving something prestigious, even though we've all learned by this point that who cares if it's prestigious, like the system is rotten.
Yeah, I think there's something like interesting, I don't know, to that, where like they do it with Alderaan, where like all of the characters have this initial negative reaction to Alderaan, right? Like they're in this big crowd, they're on the Death Star watching it blow up, and like Nash is even from there, and they come around to this rationalization of like the Empire is doing this to avoid a war. This was the necessary sacrifice. But, like all of their initial thoughts were like, "Oh God, they just blew up a planet and killed billions of people. What the fuck? What can I like?" But they're surrounded. They think they're surrounded by all these people. Are like, "Oh well, all of these people are supporting that. I can't do anything." But like you think about that in the context of what is everyone else there thinking? It's probably a lot of people,
and everyone is like, "This is fucked up."
Yeah, and everyone else there is probably thinking that too. But then everyone feels like, "Oh, what can I do about it?" And maybe they could have done more if more people had said that earlier. But
and a lot of people, if she points out when she sees the second one, like this is going to lead to billions of people now joining the Rebel Alliance, because that is what happened after the first one.
Yeah,
they get swells of people joining the Alliance, and yeah, like it is. What I really like when she sees Palpatine finally, and she's like, "Oh, like what the fuck?" Like,
he's just
there's two.
aged.
yeah, that was one thing I had marked. Like, you look at Palpatine and Vader. Palpatine's just a little elderly, and Vader just has, I forget, she says like differences in abilities.
Yeah,
she's like, no one should be judged for having a difference in ability. Like you see Darth Vader, he's just pure evil standing there, like
chokes out 6 of your coworkers.
Yeah, bless him. He just has a disability. Yeah.
Look how high he can still rise in the Empire.
Yeah, it's a good thing actually. I did also like the moment where it's just like a little moment because she sees him bow or like kneel, and like no one else does that, and she's like, "What the fuck is going on there?" Like that's a little weird.
They have a special relationship.
Yeah.
Well, it's not as weird as Thane having direct interactions with Mon Mothma, where he fucking vomits all over her and starts complaining about Ciena.
On the Liberty, yeah. It's funny. This is like you mentioned. This is the book where more than any, it's like you have the historical snapshot of like Leia giving out the orders for the ion cannon and the starfighters at Hoth, or like whatever, and like Thane is like just out of the picture in every one, or like, oh yeah, Ciena was there when Palpatine showed up. It's just she had her helmet on, so you couldn't see her.
Was Han not a general on Hoth?
I don't think so. Maybe. Not sure.
Because it does come up where like he has no idea who Han is, which is kind of funny. Okay, no, it's only by Endor. It's not on Hoth. Yeah. Okay, he's like General Solo, General Calrissian. Who the fuck are these people?
Remember that giant fucking walking carpet that was in the hangar at the Hoth?
Yeah, like it's weird that he doesn't know Han. Like, did people just not mention like Yavin ever again after? Yeah, I feel like that comes up a lot. And you're on Hoth. He says they're all living in one small bunker. They're there for a few weeks. Luke's there. He
Mhm.
knows of Luke. We never get him talking to Luke. But like Han, like it seems like you know who Han is. I feel like that was too big of an attempt to make it
My
not seem like
yeah,
he's tied into
my
anything.
rationalization for that is like I think it's hinted that he's got a bit of a crush on Leia. So he's like, oh, that fucker who's always running with Leia.
Hmm.
Same with Luke because he obviously doesn't know that they're siblings. They don't even know yet. So
I do appreciate that they made Dak kind of annoying before they killed him, because then I felt
yeah,
less bad about him dying.
yeah. Oh, take on the whole empire yourself. Great job, buddy.
Fucking
Fucking
died,
idiot.
nerd.
The
Yeah.
empire, they sure feel taken on now.
Do you think maybe Sienna's supposed to be a little bit force sensitive?
Yeah, I mean, maybe she is the way that she feels about Palpatine is like very similar to how Leia is often
Yeah.
written, where she is um just like she feels like the dark side emanating off him, even though she doesn't realize it. Um, and even like I think like not to be too corny, but like the love aspect, I think that is supposed to be kind of that's often tied up with the Force in a way. So
Yeah.
and even her little mantra with her sister is kind of Jedi like, or
Yeah. See
it's
through my eyes with
yeah,
her.
it's not like a yeah. It would have been funnier if that was because she cannibalized her twin in the womb, but
Yeah, they didn't go that direction.
no.
Cowards.
Yeah.
Like there's something that's also very YA, like very true to YA and like the teenage experience of like the only relationship which matters in the galaxy, the only special people
Yeah.
are these two.
Yeah.
Uh where like I identified only he could spin through an AT-AT's legs because we have canyons back home. Like so many people at this academy probably have a similar story.
Oh
Like
yeah.
no one else's romantic pairings are important because these two are like this. This is different. She's different. He's
That is how
different.
it feels when you're,
Yeah.
you know, 16. And I just remember like for me when I read this book the first time, I remember like putting myself in that like you're in high school and
Yeah.
like your girlfriend gets new friends or something, like new girlfriends, and you like kind of vaguely threatened by them. That's like what it reminded me of, like when she got the new roommates, and like you're not like you got to compete for her affection now, or like her attention, or just like I thought that was it's just it is definitely written like it's very it is you know the YA romance goes through it in like the entire
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. It again, very well done, but also very like a very
Unfortunately, I
specific
am
reflection of a
sappy.
psyche.
Yeah, that's why I got a manga.
Yeah, I looked up their Wikipedia pages to see if there was like any like character art or anything, and
There's a lot.
there is a manga.
These are very popular characters. Like it is one of the more popular new canon novels, I'd say.
I've never
Like
heard
it's
anyone complain about it. Like
yeah,
even people who are like will shit on everything canon. Like Lost Stars
the
is good.
Lost Stars is good. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's 10 years old, which is remarkable because it also is like it's romantic schlock, and I say
Yeah,
that as someone who loves the book. Like it's a very I've read it I think 3 or 4 times now, so that kind of adds to it. But it's schlocky like Star Wars often is, and it's the lore is like not particularly good. Like if you care about that, it's 10 years old, so it was in that very weird new canon novel point where like they were still figuring a lot of things out. Um, like there's a reference to Naboo being invaded, and like if it had come out later, you could have tied that in with Battlefront 2 and Operation Cinder, but
yeah.
obviously that all hadn't been figured out yet.
Well, speaking of that, jumping back a bit, we do have a super chat from Joel who asks, Do you think, for the most part, tie-in fiction works better after the movie or show is done? This book and Catalyst perhaps being the exception. And like, I think that is a good reason why often that is the case, because like there's so much you have to leave on the table just because the thing you're kind of referencing isn't out yet. And then sometimes changes happen if it's a movie, and then it's like, okay, well, this doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, this was supposed to be a tie into episode 7, but just in the way that like everything featured the Battle of Jakku in the first couple of years. Like that's the funny thing. I mentioned this on the podcast before. Like about the Battle of Jakku is like there's like there's like 300 interpersonal relationships reaching like their most dramatic point in like
Yeah.
one-on-one combat on different ships. Like we saw it in what's it called, Alphabet Squadron as well. We see it in Battlefront 2, where she's same thing, boarding a Star Destroyer and confronting her father, and like everyone decided to be really dramatic that day.
But that's the point. All of these battles are all melodrama for someone. Just we got to see more of it in this one. Like Endor,
Yeah.
you think Vader and Luke was the only like family against family in that battle? Probably not.
Yeah,
Wedge's
probably not.
dad, Hedge, was there as well.
I don't know if that's how the lore works.
No, it is. You never heard of Hedge Antilles and
That was
Clipper
like another
Squadron?
thing, like Wedge. I guess it would have been established afterwards. He was also in the Imperial Academy, and like, I mean, that was true in Legends, I believe anyway. And then, but it's confirmed in Rebels. And like I think it must have been after this, because you think he would have, when he meets Thane, you think he would have mentioned something.
Yeah. Yeah, like Thane gets recruited by Wedge, but then how is he not friends with Luke? He's in Corona Squadron instead with the Contessa. The barefoot Contessa. She goes to start a cooking show afterwards.
Yeah, she was an interesting character.
But any other specific plot points that we want to go over? I think we...
No, I like the it is just funny, like how the end of the book is, government's collapsing, and then the first really big fight they get is over a school project. I like the flying. Flying is like a big constant between them, because the Empire brings them together in a way too, because they're in. What happens is both of them, and remember they're from different, parts of society. Both of them want to go see the ships when they're young, and Tarkin is basically impressed with them, and he encourages them to join the Imperial military, and then that gets them training together, because Thane is rich and has a ship that they can co-pilot together, or he's a simulator as well. And then they do that before they bang for the last time as well. How many times do they bang? Is it 3 times?
I think
Twice?
only 3 or 2 different times, right? Because
Yeah,
like before they leave, and then when they're back, like they probably do it multiple times in those nights. But like 2 distinct sessions, I think, is what happens.
yeah.
Is when they come back, and then I don't know, in that jail cell, maybe again, who knows? They got conjugal visits in New Republic prisons.
Maybe they're
She
separated by that.
also thinks like, oh well, once I'm caught, I'm done. Like the New Republic is going to torture me as well, because she's got all this Imperial propaganda. Like, oh, if I get captured, I'm going to be executed. I'm going to be tortured. They're going to be interrogating me like this way. Like they're no better than the Empire, and that does help explain a little bit of her perspective as well.
Yeah.
But then Thane's just like, nah, you're good.
She feels like she's been really given a bad hand in life, where she's done everything right by herself and her morals, and then she's, a pretty bad position at the end.
Yeah.
Like the ending isn't, especially with like some of the other stuff that's come out, like Mando and Alphabet Squadron even, although in Alphabet Squadron they say the ones who didn't defect until after Jakku or after Endor were the baddies, but
Yeah. I mean, there were.
I think she'll get some I think she'll get a pretty light sentence.
Probably. In Alphabet Squadron 4, it's her and Erica that are hanging out with Chas.
Like that's the thing. I'm shocked these characters have not gotten any follow up whatsoever. I hope they do someday.
Yeah, I like. It's not like Claudia Gray stopped writing Star Wars, right? Like
Oh,
she's a perennial Star Wars author. Hopefully, we get more with them. It's kind of surprising that it hadn't happened with like just and then the Mighty Oak Apocalypse flew in Exegol with Thane and Sienna on it, and also a 400-year-old Wookiee. Like
yeah.
that happens.
Claudia Gray has said she wants to write a second one. So
Right, get Tom from Del Rey on the horn. We're making it happen.
well, she's gonna have time because the High Republic is nearly over. So
Yeah, I guess that would be a good time for it.
yep,
Especially like if they are moving into some post uh either post Endor or even like in the sequel trilogy period stuff. But
it is crazy how like reading this again makes me feel very old because I guess I was 23 when I read it the first time, and like I felt a lot. I was a lot more connected to like you know the high school feelings of love and
mm-hmm.
or I was a lot less separated by time from that. Like a lot of these like young YA books are kind of predicated on the idea that the infatuation you get in high school with like the first person you fall in love with is like what the relationship is actually going to be like forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but yeah, it making me feel very old that it's almost 10 years old.
Yeah. What also makes me feel very old is that Koi also donated $5 a while ago, saying,
Okay, is
"Please read Paradise Snare." We'll get there.
that the Lando book?
It's one of the Han Solo ones, the AC Crispin ones.
We not read that one. We read that's the trilogy. We read the adventures. I always get them mixed up.
Betsy says Thane and Kendi are in the Battlefront 2 Jakku mission, if that counts for anything. Are they actually by name in there? Like, this is my first time reading it, so if they were, I wasn't. It wouldn't stand up to me.
I don't remember that. Thane Kyrell. I do not remember that.
The laser cannon incident.
Hmm.
Says Battlefront 2 mentioned, so
Okay.
appears in The Princess and Scoundrel.
Oh yeah, I remember mentioning that. I forget what. Oh, he's just like it's Thane, right? I think he's just on the ship or something. I forget.
On the,
Like,
the Galactic Voyager or whatever the fuck it's called.
yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, I remember mentioning it. Yeah.
I vaguely remember that as well, but this is my first time reading it, so none of that mattered to me when we read it.
Yeah, because I mentioned this book about 1,000,000 times. So
Yeah, I think this has to be the most mentioned book on TabCaf.
oh
Maybe other
yeah,
than
for
Heir to
sure.
the Empire.
And I talk about Aftermath a lot too, but
Sienna's appearances are fucking amazing. Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, parentheses, first mentioned, parentheses, indirect mention only, parentheses, retcon.
oh yeah, right in the one of the first scenes, she's just off screen when they're considering shooting the cargo or the escape pod.
Mm-hmm. This is in The Scoundrel, the indirect mention only. Is that a hint at like what happens to her? No, that's pre-Jakku. This is in The Scoundrel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it wouldn't be. Okay.
I
That's
don't
sad.
think she's in it. I think it's just him.
He's mentioned, and then she's indirectly mentioned. So I don't know.
I don't remember.
But anyways, where are these landing for you?
Unfortunately for me, this is an S.
It's an S.
Yeah, I love this book. It's one of my favorite Star Wars books. I'm fully aware of its flaws, but I think it's got my favorite set of characters.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite like romantic. I think it's my favorite romance in Star Wars besides for the like I like this romance more than Luke and Mara, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It feels real. It does feel like a idealized romance as a young person. Again, like it's the 15 or 16-year-old reading this would kind of imagine romance, but it's still, it's still the best written one, I think. In maybe not, maybe I won't say that overall, but it's at least in canon, I can't think of a whole lot of romances better. I guess Alphabet Squadron has some good ones as well. Um, but yeah, this is an S for me. I really like this book.
Yeah, I'm floating between S and A. I think I have to go with S. I was thinking it's probably S all the way through reading it. It's like definitely a book I'd reread. Dana's gonna read it as well because I feel like it's right up her alley.
It's very anxious to hear if you liked it or not.
So I did
This
really
was
like it.
probably the one. This was the one that I was most curious whether you liked or not.
Yeah. So yeah, like there's definitely stuff if I think about it too much, where it's like, is that actually the best thing to have done? No, but like the way it handles a lot of the themes that I enjoy in Star Wars is really good. I really like all the characters. There's nothing that really was taking me out of it. It's something that I definitely reread just for like the
You should listen to the
just for the fuck
audiobook,
of it.
man. It's really good. Although it's funny because they'll play like a dramatic, like Burning Homestead or something when like they discovered that the cannon's been sabotaged. Like Thane got like one demerit point, and it's like John Williams just fucking cooking in the back.
This is the worst thing to ever happen to anyone. Luke's family on fire. Thane's class project ruined. But we finished NJO. We've got this little interstitial episode out of the way. I think the next books are going to be Mask of Fear and Into Darkness from there. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to take a look just briefly at our tier guide to see how many. So fun fact, overall we have the exact same average rating of 3.8.
That's wild.
Because we have, so our ratings go F, D, C, B, A, S, S being the highest, F being the lowest. And for our spreadsheet, we have them assigned as like F is 1, S is 6, just so that I can like average everything out. So our average rating is 3.8, a 3 being a C. So like we have it right between C and B, which is like pretty high. Like you'd expect that the average would be in there because there's like 3.5 would have half be below, half above.
Yeah.
So on the whole, we've liked stuff more than we haven't. Overall, we have 2 books at F, including only one that we both put at F. That's Planet of Twilight. Your F. On top of that is, do you think you know what it is? Curious.
Oh yeah, Battle Scars.
No,
What?
you didn't do that.
Okay. Give me a hint.
It's Legends. It's in.
Oh, Jedi Academy 3.
No, that's mine. Yours is Children of the Jedi.
Oh yeah, that was my next guess.
Then you have 7 Ds. I have 6. That does include Battle Scars for you. You have
like, what's the most we've been separate on a book?
I'm gonna get to that after the breakdown here. 23 Cs for you, 28 Cs for me. So I'm not sure how that math works out. I guess it does. Because there were some that you didn't read, and then they tended to be Cs. I think most books that I've read and you didn't were Cs for me. So I guess you did. You made the right choice. I don't know. Bs.
I get a sniff of that. That's a C. I'm sick this week.
Bs are 21 for you, 20 for me.
Okay.
A's 15 for you, 16 for me. Okay. S's 6 for you, 7 for me. I think we have the same. I don't know that they're other than the one that I've done. I gave Trader an S. You gave it an A. Like everything else, we have the same for S.
None of the. I thought I gave one of the Thrawn ones an S. You didn't.
I think you convinced me to. We both
Okay.
gave Air and Last Command an S. I think before we went through and re-ranked them, I had one as an A,
Mhm.
and then I think you
Yeah, I think
convinced
you
me
had
to
Air
change
as
it.
an A, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not sure if like the prior rankings were significantly different because we
So
have those.
our S's were Plagueis. I'm gonna guess Plagueis. The two Thrawn, Alpha Squadron 3. Um, did we do was I'm trying to think if Vision of the Future. Probably not. I think that might have been an A. Um,
We
this
don't
one.
remember. So there are two that we have question marks for still, or three:
Hmm.
Dark
Hmm.
Journey, Vision of the
Okay.
Future, and Lesser Evil. So I don't know what we ranked those.
Okay. So what were the S's then?
The S's, you were right so far. Alphabet Squadron, Darth Plagueis, Heir of the Empire, Last Command. Um,
Oh, MedStar 1.
no, we gave that A, I think.
Okay.
It's in here somewhere. MedStar, yeah, we gave MedStar 1A. I gave 2 a B, you gave, or I
Okay.
gave 2 a C, you gave 2 a B. Uh, Revenge of the Sith novelization is one you were missing. Then the next S's were Lost Stars for both of us and Traitor for me. So it's been a minute since there's been an S.
Yeah.
Uh, we made it through NJO with I think the only S being me
Traitor.
with Traitor. All
You
right,
know,
let's
this is
see.
the second time I read this book for this podcast because I it was looking like we might do it one other time.
Hmm.
You mentioned it, and I started, and I just never stopped. So, okay. So, what was our biggest discrepancy? Have we ever been more than two apart?
I don't even know if we've ever been 2 apart.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Maybe in the I'm gonna look at the original ratings. I don't. There's 4, 5, 5, 6, blah blah blah. Nope. We did the re-ranking like fairly early on. There were only
Mhm.
like 20 books that we'd read at that point.
Yeah.
But let's see. Jedi Academy, Jedi Search, you were 3, I was 2. Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, you were 4, I was 3. Rule of 2, you were 3, I was 2. Children of the Jedi, we were only 1 off. Maybe Battle Scars must be the biggest one. Where is it? No, you gave it a D, I gave it a C. Like we've never had a bigger delta than 1.
I'm surprised I didn't give that an F just because after I listened to the book, it kept auto starting on my phone when I connected it to my Bluetooth in my vehicle. So I'd be like, get in, go for a drive, like turn on a song or a podcast, and then be fucking battle scars.
Do you think there's any more out of stuff that's already been released? Do you think there's any more S's out there for you? Because we've kind of had a few that we were anticipating, like looking forward to getting to, kind of knowing that they'd be up there for us. And Lost Stars is one
Well,
that we've kind
I'm
of been.
guessing what are the I mean, we haven't read it yet, but I mean, I guess none of these we have. I guess that's the question. I haven't read this one yet, but Mask of Fear seems like you really like that one.
Yes,
So I could see that being an S. I could see you really liking Bloodlines. Have you read
I
Bloodlines
haven't.
before?
No.
I could see you really liking that one. Um, hmm, that's a really good question.
I
I feel
don't
like there's
know if
going to be
you'll put Mask of Fear as an S. I could
okay,
see it ending up as our biggest difference.
okay,
You might think it's a little slow.
yeah, I can see that. I'm trying to think. Like, there's got to be some books that might surprise us. I wonder if there's any like the Legacy of the Force books that I'll really like. Probably not
Yeah.
an S. Maybe. Um, I don't know. What about you? Can you think of any that might be that high?
Like Mask of Fear is I mean I'm just gonna say already S
Okay,
for me. It's gonna be up there. Um
awesome.
out of what we have left, like I don't know that any Legends books
Have we read the
will
Upbound Flight?
we did. We
Did
must
we?
have.
I don't think we have. Rise of Darth Vader is pretty good. That one I could see being an
Yeah.
S. I remember really liking that one.
We haven't done Open Flight. Okay. I don't know if that'll be S though. I think that'll probably be
No,
like
I
B or
think
A for
it'd be
me.
an A. I think.
But
Um.
yeah, I don't know. Other than that, like I feel
Yeah,
like
I
the
don't
Old
know.
Republic books we haven't done, but those are all I think probably going to be like high of B, low of D. I've never heard particularly good things about like Fatal Alliance or Annihilation or anything. So,
Yeah. Labyrinth of Evil is good, but again, I don't think an S.
Darkness, where do you think you're going to land on it before we get into it?
I think it's gonna be straight C's.
I can see that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what I can also see is the episode coming to an end next week. Legacy, I think, comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Week after that will be, or actually no, because yeah, next. So yeah, Mask of Fear comes out on the 25th. So we were gonna do it on the 6th of March. So
Right.
next week will be Legacy Comics, maybe 2 Legacy Comics in a row.
Yeah.
Unless there's something else that we should talk about or do or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out.
Figure it out. Legacy next week, and then we'll have a plan for the week after.
Yep. Thank you all for listening. I'm hopefully going to have this out at a much more reasonable time because I actually recorded it instead of relying on downloading it afterwards because that takes forever to process. Keeps being a mistake. Keep doing it. But we're going to be doing the X2 podcast in 24 minutes. We all have essays we've written about some of the worst movies of 2024.
Do you have can you give a teaser for yours? Mine is a biblical take on Megalopolis.
Mine is about how The Joker 2 is a movie with a strong message about fire safety.
Okay.
So, and I have not watched Joker 1, so I make some assumptions about what happens there.
To it. Who's are you most excited for? For me, I'm curious to see what Charlie cooked up.
I'm curious when Charlie cooked up to me. It sounds like he was ready last week, so I don't know.
I sat down. I was not ready last week. I mean, I knew we weren't doing it, but I sat down last night with my laptop to start writing it, and I like put the movie on again in the background while I was working, and then before I knew it, I'd watched the entire movie again and written. I'd never been so locked in.
I watched this movie on 2 times speed, and it still felt like it took too long.
Yeah, I think Joker 2 would have been the one that I wanted to watch the least.
Me too.
Yeah. I think the one I wanted the most was
Megalopolis?
No. What did Charlie get again?
I don't remember.
His was just because there's Borderlands was one, and like Borderlands I think would have been bad, but I mean probably not that bad. Oh, Madam Web. That's the one that I would have wanted to watch, Madam Web. Because it looks funny.
All right. Well, we'll be continuing this conversation in 20 minutes on youtube.com/ECKSTOO as we do every week after TapCaf. Hope to see some of you there. Yeah. So, goodbye.
Bye,
Leave. Get out.